Hello girls. So, you've been looking a bit at Manchester, about how it's been changing and about where it is in the UK. So we're going to think about what some of the opportunities are for people. So social opportunities, what facilities, what things are there for people to do in Manchester? Why do people live here? So we're going to have a look a little bit at how Manchester's changed, and we're going to think about what the facilities there are for people here. So a little bit of graph work and a small written task for you. First of all, we need to think about what is urban change. So urban change is when towns and cities change their landscape to reflect the changes in society. So in other words, the age of people, where people have come from, the whole town, the city starts to grow. We need more houses and we get more different facilities that are suited to different groups of people. So let's just have a quick think about how Manchester is changing. So, first of all, there is a very large student population and amount of young people in Manchester than those at a pensionable age. So in other words, there's quite a lot more young people in Manchester than there are old people, and we've mentioned about universities before. The transport has changed in Manchester. There's new rail journeys to London and it takes about 2 hours. The high-speed 2 network has changed. The reintroduction of the tram, you know the trams going around Manchester, that's created easier journeys through the city. In fact, a lot of these trams were built very recently, the tram line to Didsbury, for example. The population has become a lot more ethnically diverse. Manchester is one of the most diverse cities in the UK, and we've got many different groups of people coming from all over the world to live here who require different needs. So if there's a high Muslim population, we'll need mosques, for example. So there's different facilities being built and being set up for different groups of people. And back to the transport, we've also got a good network of the motorways, the roads, the rail and the air connection to make it more accessible. So Manchester's population is changing, becoming more diverse, perhaps even younger, and therefore we're getting a lot of changes in the city. Let's just have a think about what Manchester is like then at the moment. We need to be able to look at what the population is about to be able to understand it. So first of all, in 2018 there are about 1.2 million people living in the Greater Manchester area. So this is the area of the city of Manchester, including Salford, parts of Stockport, Oldham and Bolton. The average age is about 36.4, so it's quite a young population. The population density is 3.2k. So in other words, in every square kilometre, there's about 3.2 people living. And per house, we've got about 2.37 people. So every house has about 2.3 people living in it. Now this is an overview of Manchester. If we look a little bit more detail, we'll see that there's been a lot of change and it's not all the same everywhere. Not everyone is 36 years old, for example. Okay, so let's have a look at the population of Greater Manchester in 2016. So on the left hand side, we've got the United Kingdom with 65 million people, and we can compare that to Manchester, which has got just over 2.7 million people in 2016. But if we have a look about how the population structure is made up, we can see that it's quite similar to the UK. We've got quite a lot of children aged between 0 and 10. Then we've got slightly fewer teenagers in Manchester, and that's the same across the UK. It just happens to be a fewer number, and I'll explain that in a second. Then in Manchester we've got a lot of people aged between 20 and 40. So that could be because of the university education and the jobs we've got here. And that is the reason we've got a lot of children as well, because if you're aged between 20 and 40, you're likely to have children. So that's why there's a big bump in the children here. We've got slightly fewer people aged over 40. Perhaps they've moved to the countryside and not living in the city anymore. And then we've got another big group aged between 45 and 60. So you might know these as the boomer generation, you've probably heard of before. And the people who are in their 20s to 40s could possibly be their children. And the children at the very bottom could be their grandchildren. So we've got 3 bumps in Manchester. As we get older, we've got quite a lot of people up to retirement age, up to late 60s, and then it starts to drop down. This could be because people are dying or because they're moving away from Manchester, but it follows a very similar structure to the UK as a whole. Looking at more detail at the population, we can see we've got a population density map here, so the number of people living in each area. As we can see, the darker bits mean there's more people. So Manchester is quite spread out. We've got some areas like in the city centre that I'll just circle in the middle, where it's quite a high population density, down to where Whalley Range is, Didsbury, Withington, those sorts of areas. We've also got some areas further out which are quite highly populated. So we've got the areas of Bolton and Wigan, Bury and Rochdale. So there's a lot of centres of population, but it is quite spread out. Some areas don't have many people here. For example, around the industry in Trafford. We've also got a lot of industrial areas in North Manchester where not many people live. So the population has changed by people moving to these city centres, the places where people live. That will mean they need more housing, more schools, more hospitals, more doctors. We can also look at the age of Manchester. Now, we said that most people are 36 years old, but of course that's not true. Everywhere is spread out, everywhere is different. So the darker it is on this map, the older people tend to be. So if we look, it's quite clear that in the middle here, we've got a lot of young people. So these could be perhaps the young people living in the city, getting jobs, or perhaps they're in university. So we've got a lot more young people around where the city centres are. So again, around Bolton here, around Oldham and Rochdale, where there were more people, they tended to be younger. The older people tend to live just outside of the city, on the edges here. Maybe they want a bit of a quieter life and are moving to the countryside or different areas. So we've got some changes about these areas, and older people need different services to younger people. They won't need as many schools, but they might need more hospitals and doctors. If we look at the average age, we can see that Manchester has an average age of 38.3. So compared to all the different towns and cities in the UK, so this statistic is slightly different because it's hard to get accurate ones, but compared to all of the rest of the UK, it's quite a young city. In fact, Manchester is really low down on the list. So we've got actually one of the youngest cities. So young people will require schools, universities, entertainment, things to do. So it will be different compared to the service they've got in an older city, for example on the Isle of Wight here, where they might have more nursing homes and hospitals. We can also see how the population has been growing over time. Manchester in 2002 was just over 2.5 million people here. Whereas over time, the trend is it has increased, and it's increased pretty steadily, all the way up to 2018 here, where the population is over 2.8 million people. So the population has been steadily growing over time. That could be to do with people having children. It could also be due to people migrating into the city. That's not necessarily from different countries. It could be just from other cities, other towns, or even the countryside in the UK.